All right, our speakers today are Irina Kirilova and Raz Korn, and they will show you how to develop a new or improved user interface based on the SAP Fiori user experience without adding any major logic or data on top of an on-premise SAP S/4HANA software system. Now, before I hand it over, I'd like to make you aware of the SAP Community, an external-facing platform where you can connect to other members and follow the SAP Teched and SAP Business Technology Platform tags to stay up to date. Finally, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button in the menu bar where you can raise questions during the presentation. Irina and Raz, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So let's just jump right in. First, we have, of course, the standard disclaimer slide with a disclaimer of forward-looking statements and an additional statement regarding the change, the rebranding of SAP Cloud Platform to SAP to be part of the SAP Business Technology Platform, and that the capabilities of SAP Cloud Platform will now be available in either SAP Integration Suite or SAP Extension Suite. And the agenda for today. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this session. And I'm sure that a couple of months ago, we delivered this session as a Teched session. So it was really interesting because it was because of the COVID time that is around us. It was very interesting to deliver it remotely and not on the ground. Meeting everybody face to face and getting personal contact. And basically, this time I decided to deliver the session right from my home office, which is different than previously. I went to the office, and probably it was the last time that I've been to the office. So it was in December 10th, I think. I don't know how about you. If you're willing to share, you're welcome to write in the chat. When was the last time that you've been to the office? Perhaps it was a year ago, perhaps it was today. That's really interesting to see how COVID affected your work. This session is a very packed session with a lot of experiences and a lot of information that I hope will help you in your daily work moving forward. And in case you are not aware, you don't know exactly where you are, so you have joined Dev 161 workshop, Extend SAP S/4HANA with a custom UI on SAP Business Technology Platform, or in short, SAP BTP. We're going to have a short introduction of the team that is supporting this session, the goals of the workshop, the tools that will be used, and then we'll do what we call an expert-led session. So I'll go through the workshop material myself and perform it online with the challenges, of course, of online demo. And at the end, some closing statements and Q&A. I hope that we'll have about 15 minutes for this. And there will be some breakpoints along the way as some of the operations that we're doing take time, and we'll use this time for interactive Q&A, I hope. So let's start with the team. So my name is Raz Korn, and I'm product manager for SAP Business Application Studio, or in short, BUS. Irina Kirilova is a co-speaker for this session. Product manager for SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery Service. And supporting us are also Ian Quigley, product owner of SAP Fiori Tools, and Marcus Hall from SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery. And in this session, you will learn about end-to-end business application development. You're going to use the latest tools. You can see the logos down here. You use the SAP Business Application Studio as the development environment, SAP UI5 and SAP Fiori tools as frameworks for the development and tooling for the development that are part of the SAP Business Application Studio. And eventually we'll also show an integration with SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery which is very exciting. So a bit about the tools that we're going to use. The SAP Business Application Studio is available on SAP BTP Multi-Cloud, generally available for more than a year on Azure, AWS, and Ali Cloud. So it's a modern development environment. It embraces the Visual Studio Code experience, and it's tailored for efficient development for business application for the intelligent enterprise. So it helps you a lot in developing SAP applications. We're talking about building web apps with according to Fiori guidelines and with SAP UI5 framework, extending SAP solutions using the SAP Cloud Application Programming Model and SAP S4HANA, for example, workflow generation, mobile applications with SAP Mobile Services, and we recently released support for developing native SAP HANA applications. Arina, to you.
Thanks, Aras. Hello from my side as well. So as part of this workshop, you will see also our SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery service. That's a cloud service which lets you configure and run predefined pipelines. Currently, we support SAP UI5 Fiori projects and projects that follow the SAP Cloud Application Programming Model. On the roadmap, we have some further extension scenarios which we want to support. So basically, the service connects with your Git repository and automatically tests, builds, and deploys your code changes to speed up your development and delivery cycles. But not to say too much, you will see the service in exercises 8 to 11 and learn how to subscribe to it, how to create jobs for your repository, and at the end, how to access the deployed application on SAP BTP. Thanks, Aras.
Okay, so basically, this workshop is for the hands-on exercise itself. This is the core of the session, so not a lot of marketing stuff. At the end of the session, you'll get additional links and to resources if you'd like to learn more about any of the different topics that we'll cover in the session. What we want you to do in the session is to get the feel of how the different tools and different services provide you with what you need for your daily work and how you can leverage them to make yourself more productive. So the workshop itself, I'm going to develop an SAP Fiori application using the Business Application Studio, UI5, and SAP Fiori tools. We'll create the app, test it with mock, connect it to backend, test it against a backend, deploy it to SAP BTP Cloud Foundry environment, and then we'll demonstrate integration with SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery. And all the setup that is required, the triggering of the pipeline and monitoring the pipeline all the way to testing the app on the Cloud Foundry environment. Along the way, we'll do some UI5 coding, not a lot. Mostly I prepared some code snippets in advance. And we'll also learn a bit about Cloud Foundry. So let's get our hands dirty. Okay, first thing first, of course, we need to be able to get all the toolings that are needed for our development work. And what we're going to use the trial environment. And I'm starting from sap.com, going to the trial environment. So I'm clicking the try and buy. And here we have the experience free software trials. And we're going to test with the SAP Business Technology Platform trial environment. If you don't have an account, you can register for free or log on to the trial. I'm going to use my personal trial environment, so it's not an SAP account that I also have on trial, but it's really a private account, very much like yours. And here you can see that after the creation of the account on BTP, and let's see, let me go to the this is the repository. This is the session exercises that we're following. So basically, you can see here exactly what we plan to do. It's going to create a Fiori freestyle app. It follows the worklist floor plan. The main view will provide list of products, their inventory level, and number of units. And in the details view, we'll see the supplier information, a list of orders that include the product. You can see here how it is going to look like. So this is the main screen. And then we have the details screen as well. So we can see here the supplier info, the order info. So the requirements are to get a free trial on SAP BTP trial. And this is something that I've done in advance because it takes a few minutes for the account to set up. You have a tutorial that shows you exactly how to do it. I also created in advance the Northwind destination. So let also just, there's also a tutorial that shows how to do it. Let me just show you exactly how it looks like. I'm going to my trial account, going into my trial sub account. And here I have under connectivity, I have destinations. And here we have the Northwind destination. The SAP Business Application Studio is for new accounts, it is automatically enabled. But if there are some issues, we have a tutorial that explains how to solve at least some of them. And we can get rolling with the development. Let's start here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is to access the Business Application Studio. And there are two ways to do it, either through the subscription pane, which, by the way, as you probably noticed, and I mentioned it at the start, there's a rebranding process in progress, changing SAP Cloud Platform to be part of BTP. So things are going to change a bit here. And also, you should expect in the near future that all the services will move to a different location. And basically, it's a disclaimer that I'd like to put in advance for everything that we're doing. Everything is cloud-based, so everything is software as a service. So changes are happening all the time. Whatever you see may be a bit different in a couple of weeks from now, because we keep enhancing and improving the experience and the functionality that we deliver. So I have here all the times of the subscriptions. I can search for a specific subscription, for example, the Business Application Studio, and I can launch it directly from here, or we can do it also from the trial homepage. I have here a direct link to the SAP Business Application Studio. So we're loading it. Privacy disclaimer, and this is a new page that appears for if you do not have any dev spaces available in advance, and we'll talk about dev spaces in a moment. It was released this Sunday. So this is like a new experience for all those who were not familiar with it. So we have here links to a lot of needed material like tutorial, blogs, community, or to create a dev space, either a generic one or create directly a specific dev space type. One moment and we'll talk about it. I'll use my dev spaces, which leads me to the dev space manager of SAP Business Application Studio. So what are dev spaces? Dev spaces are is the environment which you develop in the different application. Each dev space is tailored for a specific development scenario and includes its prepackaged with everything you need in order to develop the specific scenario. And so let's see exactly how it happens. So I can create a dev space, and you can see here on the left-hand side that I have various types of dev spaces according to the development scenario. It can be Fiori, Cloud Business Application, native SAP HANA, mobile, and we expect to have more in the future. So I'm going, for our purpose, we're going to use an SAP Fiori dev space, and you can see here a list of predefined extensions that are coming built in as part of the SAP Fiori dev space. And I can also decide whether I want to enable additional extensions as part of my dev space. And this is something that I can also do later on after the creation of dev space, and we will see it right away. So I'm clicking the create dev space to create my dev space, to create my dev environment. And we're going to have like a couple of minutes until the dev space goes live. So it is now in a starting mode. And once it changes to running, we'll be able to access the dev space. And you can see here when it was created, its ID, it helps us in supporting you if needed. I can stop and start a dev space. Once it is starting or in various other statuses, I can download its content. I can, of course, delete the dev space. Or when it is in a stopped status, I can go back to the dev space creation page where I can decide to add additional extension, just like we saw. So in the trial environment, I can define up to 2 dev spaces, and only one of them can be running at a time. In a factory environment, you are entitled to have up to 10 dev spaces and have 2 of them running simultaneously. So this is a bit about the dev spaces. Let's see exactly where we stand here. So we covered all of this. We are about here between the starting and the running. And you have here all the information about dev space operation. And now you can see it's running. I have here now the hyperlink enabled, clicking the hyperlink, and I'm getting into my development environment. And we'll do a short product tour. Again, this is very similar to VS Code in its experience. So we have, of course, the top menu bar. We have the activity bar on the left where I have the project explorer, the search pane, Git pane, debug pane, extension pane. We cover some of them along the demo, so don't be alarmed of all the information. A welcome screen comes up when you first start the development environment with various links to important operations and information, like starting from a template called cloning an application from Git, importing from your local machine, and so on and so forth, as well as keyboard shortcuts, preferences, guided development, and so on. Here on the right-hand side, the activity bar with the outline pane. We will see it in action later using the JavaScript and XML. Down here, we have the status bar, which is very important. It provides a lot of information in a very small area. So I can open and close, can toggle the bottom panel. So you can see here the problems view. We'll have the terminal here, logs of different tasks and so on. The notification is, of course, the color of the taskbar also hints and provides me additional information. Now it's kind of purple, which means that no workspace is currently open. We'll talk about workspaces in a moment. The problems view, whether I have whether I'm logged in to CF or not. Settings that I can play with, and we'll play with some settings in a moment. And let's open the workspace. So workspace is where the work is actually done. This is where my projects are saved, and this is where I edit my, do my development work. So now I open the workspace and we'll see that we move from one workspace to the other along the development process. And you can see that now the status bar turned to blue, which means that I have a workspace open. And let's jump ahead a bit. And I want to bring in some content that we'll use later in the demo. So it's very, very easy. I can do it like import a zip file from my personal machine, or I can just drag and drop stuff. So this time just dragging from my computer. Let's open, let's say, this metadata file, for example. We will use it shortly. And what can we do here? For example, we can change the color theme to a dark theme. Someone likes it. I like the light one. A bit about the extension. So the environment itself is an extensible environment, which means that I can add additional capabilities to my environment from a marketplace. I can add additional human generators, and I can add additional themes, for example, or additional toolings that support me in my development work. So let's see just one small example. You can see here that I have like the Monokai, 2 Monokais in red. Just pay attention. So I'm going to the extension pane. I have a disclaimer here that extensions are not delivered from SAP. So I need to be careful. Let's add a pink theme. So I have here a pink as a heck theme. The search is done against the OpenVSX registry, which is a vendor neutral registry of extensions. So I can look what the extension here is all about. I can actually go to the OpenVSX site and see it there as well. Can install the extension directly from the Business Application Studio. And let's, as an example, remember the 2 Monokai in red. Now I have also the pink as heck, and here it is. So this is just one very simple example of the extensibility of Business Application Studio. But other tools are also available. So let's uninstall it and move forward. Perhaps an additional, you can of course set your keyboard shortcut to your liking, as well as change hundreds of additional parameters that are part of the environment. Just as an example, we have the fonts. So let's go to the editor, pay attention to how the metadata font looks like. And I want to disable the autosave. Let's say Georgia as an example. Okay, and how the now it looks a bit different. It's a different font. And of course, you can change the font size, the font weight, and a lot of other stuff. No, it's really looking different. And we can change it. You can have different settings for the editor and different settings for the terminal and so on. And if I don't like it, I can, of course, decide to reset my settings. And you can see that it's now back to the standard settings. Okay, let's go back to the exercises document. So the preparation, we already opened the workspace. We added, instead of data, we added a dev 161 folder with the metadata XML, manifest, and all the rest of the stuff. So you can go to the next exercise, which we also covered, which is the dev space manager, the different regions, setting customization, so on. Okay, so it's time now to start developing the application itself. Okay, to start development, I'm going a bit of background. We built the user interface out of like 3 layers. The very basic layer is the command line interface. So almost everything is available through CLI first. Then we have an additional layer, which is called the command palette, which is like a mini wizard that guides you through some basic commands, and we will use it in a moment. And then we have, of course, all the high productivity tools above it, like graphical editors and so on. So what we're going to do now, let's see, I hope that I won't need to refresh. So we are going to launch the command palette in order to get to the wizards. And this is the command palette, and I can filter the commands. I want to have the wizards. Okay, so just a small refresh. Okay, and you see here, of course, I keep getting notifications of what's going around, and I can see that installation is running smoothly. Let's launch the wizard. Okay, and this is the wizard. The freestyle wizards is something that I need to install, and this is again something that you're going to see changing in the very near future. It will be integrated into the SAP Fiori dev space standard delivery. And you can see here that I have a marketplace again of Yeoman generators, and I'm looking for Fiori generators. And this is the freestyle generator that I'm going to install. Again, very shortly, it will be integrated with the Fiori Elements generator and delivered as one extension as part of the basic SAP Fiori delivery, dev space delivery. So you should expect it very soon. Now that it's installed, I can go back to the wizard and I can see that I have this additional tile for Fiori Freestyle SAP UI5 application development. And I also get a notification that it was installed, so I can start my development work using the wizard. I'm going to develop a worklist application. And like in many times, there is some disconnection between the time that the backend is ready and the front end is ready. And the way to mitigate it is to have like an agreement between the backend and the front end. And this agreement is the metadata XML or the EDMX file, which says exactly how the backend is going to expose the information to the front end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start the development using this agreement, which is the metadata document. I uploaded it in advance, and we saw it previously. And reading the metadata XML, now I can see exactly what entities are available for me for the development. So we're going to provide a list of products and their inventory level. And you can see that I can use either the mouse or the keyboard. And I also have some filtering capability as part of the wizard. And let's get this from the document itself. So we covered all of this already. Also this part. Okay. Demo application. And one thing that I need to do as well is to add here a folder called products inventory. This is where my project is going to be generated. So I'm putting it into the project inventory and click finish, and I'll have my app available in a moment. It is now installing all the dependencies that are part of the project, and I'm waiting for the project creation to be completed. I'll get a notification for this as well. Any questions so far?
There were some questions about Business Application Studio. Do you want to answer them now, or do you have a colleague also to support here?
No, not now, but perhaps I'll be able to answer them later during the deployment. Okay, so now for the workspace topic that I mentioned. So the development itself is taking place inside workspace. So we have a dev space, which includes the tooling and capabilities. And the workspace is where we actually do the development work. And there are like two types of workspaces. One is a single root workspace, which means that there's a single project per workspace. And there's also the capability to have multiple projects within a workspace, and this is called multi-root workspace. And we will see both of them in action. We will start with a single root and then move to a multi-root. So I'm going to open my project in a new workspace. And this is opening it up in a single root workspace mode. So there will be only one project, the product inventory, within this workspace. Let's see where we stand in the, okay, so we did all of this, all of this, and we can test the application with mock data. That's nice. Okay, so we completed the basic development of the application, and now we want to test it. And we are going to do the test locally. And this is one of the strengths that we have in this environment. There's no need to do a full round of build and deploy, which takes a lot of time, but we can actually do it locally in the dev space. So what we're doing, we're right-clicking and doing preview application. And I have here a list of NPM scripts that I can run. The start mock script is the one that launches the local testing with mock data. So we can see here that it starts loading. The application will be loaded in a new tab, and we can follow the application loading here in the log. So as I mentioned, there are multiple panes that we will open here in this section of the product of this application studio. And this is one of them. And we can see that application is coming up. As default, it uses Sandbox FLP. And the application is coming up, and we can see here the mock data. So this is auto-generated mock data by a mock server. And what we can also do is we can provide mock data to the application and test it with our own data. And this is done here in the local service. We create a new folder called mock data. And we load the mock data to this folder. And what I'll do, I think that I have it in my Dev 161 folder. So I'm going to move to a multi-root workspace. So you can imagine that the Dev 161 folder is actually an additional project that I'm working on, and I'm comparing between the two projects as we do on a daily basis as developers. So within the projects, I can check the Dev 161, open it, and down, you can see that a multi-root workspace was created. I can make it persistent, and I can make it ephemeral. So once I reload a different workspace, the specific workspace multi-root workspace configuration will be removed. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it as a persistent multi-root workspace. And you can see here the title, and I can, in any time, I can decide to save the workspace and make it persistent, change its name, and whatever I want to do. So here in Dev 161, yes, I have the product JSON. This is the mock data that I was looking for, putting it into the mock data folder. And you can see here that the application auto refreshes. So every change that I make to the project is immediately impacts the running application. It refreshes and provides me feedback on my development work. So the application is coming up. And yes, it's coming up well with the mock data that I provided. Nice. So we covered testing with mock data. Okay, so we tested with auto-generated mock data, and we tested with user-provided mock data. And now it's time to do a bit UI5 coding. Again, snippets are already available. So what we would like to do is to add data filters at the top of the screen. So I'll be able to see, to filter according to inventory level of the various products. So first thing first, I'm going to modify the view. So we can see here the code snippet. What I suggest that you do when you do it on your own is to actually type it in and test the syntax highlighting, code completion, and the rest of the capabilities that are included with the SAP Business Application Studio. So it's within the view folder, the work list view XML, and we would like to have it, I think, just top of the table, if I'm correct. Yes. Okay, so we started adding them, but it's still a bit empty there. Let's see, again, how to save. So you can see here, for example, I started and the editor already knows that I have here suggestions for me to use. So I'm going to use the icon tab filter and its attributes. And you can see that I can select. It's very nice and easy coding. And if there's something that I'm not very familiar with, like I want to see what exactly is the table. So I have here a snippet of the API of the table. I can read a bit. And if I need additional information, I can just click the more information link. And I have here the API reference for the table control. Okay, in order to save us some time, I'll just move along to copy the full snippet. And we see here that I have some kind of an error, and it's highlighted here, and I also have it here in the problems view. Let's open it. Content aggregation have cardinality of 0 to 1, and they contain only one element. Okay, so what it means is that this element can only contain one element, so we need to have here an element that can aggregate all the elements within the content. So we'll use a VBox element. And indent a bit to make our code looks nice. Let's not forget to close the VBox element. You can see here that the file is not saved. I have here this dot that shows me that the file is not saved. Let's save it. And immediately my tab with application is auto refreshing. We can see here the logs of the refresh. Once it calms down, I know that the application is coming up. Okay, you can see here it comes up. And I have here the filters. Of course, that they are not working now because I have to add the logic. I only did the UI part. So let's immediately continue to the logic. And the logic is, of course, the controller of the work list UI. So I'm opening it up, and we can see here that I have also a minimap, and I can move around, dragging the minimap to the exact location that I want. And also now it's time to see the outline view, and we're going to focus on a specific function. Okay, so I have here everything now ready. And do the logic modifications. Again, a code snippet is ready here. And let's see, we want to find the onUpdate finished function and add the code there. So we have here all the different methods. And we have the onUpdate finished. And we want to add the code right here. Again, since I disabled the autosave, I'm now manually saving the changes, and this save triggers the auto refresh of the application. And we can see here still, of course, the filters will not work, but we already have here the number of products that are in my model. So let's do the filtering part. Again, we need to do it around the on refresh. So let's find the on refresh method. Here it is. Let's edit just on top and save. And I think that we can now say that basically we have a nice looking application that we can share with our customers or with our end users for feedback. So let's see it here in action. Okay, we have 12 items. Now, when clicking on the filters, the list is filtered according to the inventory level of the different products. So it's quite nice. Okay, so everything we've done so far was with the mock data. So it's time to connect to our backend. And we do it by comparing our current project to a previous project that we already developed. And here it is. So the first thing that I want to do is to compare the UI5 YAML. So we can see here that I have a compare editor. Let's also open my UI5 YAML. So in the compare editor, when I hover over the tab, I can see that on the right-hand side, I have my previous project, and on the left-hand side, I have the product inventory, which is the current project that I'm working on. So I'm going to connect it to my backend. Again, I'm going to use the Northwind service. So I'm just going to replace it. We can see that. Save it. The second thing is I want to add the NPM script that runs my application against the backend. So this is done in the package.json. Again, I'm comparing, and I can see here the start script. This is the default script for testing with my backend. I'm just copying it over. And you can see that the lines are now identical. So they turned to white background. You can see here all the differences between the files are indicated for me to very easily navigate. So let's open the package.json, save it. And the last thing that we need to do is with the manifest.json, to reference the exact service from Northwind. So again, we have it, we're saving it. So now everything is ready for me to test against a real backend. And now I do it exactly the same as I did with mock data, just running a different script. So I'm doing a preview application, start instead of start mock. And I can see that the application is coming up. I have all the log messages running in the task pane. And shortly, the application will be available. First thing first, of course, I'll have the FLP from which I'm loading the application itself. And we can see now the difference I have here, 12 products compared to 77 products in my real backend. So I'm quite happy. So I would like to build and deploy the application. So we modified all the relevant files, ran the application. Okay, and let's, another function, of course, of the multi-root projects, we can not only add projects to a workspace to make it a multi-root workspace, but we can decide from time to time to remove from the workspace. So I'm removing. Basically, I want to get rid of the multi-root workspace for now, for this demo, but usually it's very recommended to work in a multi-root environment. So you have like the projects that you're currently working on or a reference project that you want to have immediately available. So this is really the recommended way of working. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move to a single root workspace. And I'm going to prepare my application for to be deployed to the Cloud Foundry environment. So we're going to use a terminal. Some of the commands are currently available only via terminal. As I mentioned, there's like 3 layers of interaction. And the most basic one is using the CLI. And later on, we built additional high productivity tools above it, like incorporating such commands into the command palette or into some other graphical wizard. But this time we need a terminal. We can open the terminal either directly from here or using the shortcut. We can also open a terminal in a specific folder that we want. So we right-click the folder, open in terminal, and we have it here. And we're going to prepare the app for deployment. So it's going to be the Cloud Foundry environment. In this specific project, everything looks okay. The MTA description, something that I'd like to take from the exercise. So I have it here. As you can see, I'm basically following step by step the exercise that is available for you to try on your own. So it's the Northwind destination. Okay, let's see where we are. Running. And once the project is ready for deployment, we will do the build. Again, the build, we have, of course, a CLI command for it. We have it available from the command palette. And we can also just right-click the MTA and build it. What we're going to have our deployment artifacts prepared. So the build is a kind of is a relatively fast process. The deployment itself may take some time. So you can see things are jumping around. The resources is something new. Okay, basically the build completed. We have the dist folder, node modules. And what's most important, we have the MTA archives. And this is the deployment artifact, this product inventory .mtar, multi-target application archive. So in order to deploy, I need to connect to my CF. But first, I want to show you how it looks like before deployment. So entering my trial account. Not sure if you noticed it, but in the past, the trial account was a bit limited, like 30 days with the tree extension or something like that. SAP also recently changed the policy here, and the trial account is available for a full year without headache. Okay, and we go to the trial sub account into the, and we can see here the space. So you can see everything is 0 because I have nothing here. So there are no application deployed, no service instances. Everything is new. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to deploy. Again, deploy can be done directly from the CLI, can be done from the command palette. Of course, the easiest way is just to right click and click deploy. And because I'm not logged into CF, the first thing that comes up is the login. So I want to stop it for a second and do the login stuff a bit differently. So going from the command palette, I can filter out all the commands that are related to CF that are available for me. So I can bind services, reload targets, set organ space, and so on. What we're currently doing is a login. So I'm going to run the login. This is the Cloud Foundry endpoint based on my account. Here you'll see that I'm really using my private stuff. So I have a notification that I'm logged in. I also get all the organizations that I'm part of, the space to which I'm going to work with. And you can see the organization space have been set. And I can also see here at the bottom left that I'm targeting a specific org and space. So everything looks good and we're good to go with the deployment. So we'll start the deployment. Deployment will take a few minutes, I guess. So we can follow the deployment from the deployment task pane. And you can also see here, again, another example of the taskbar. You can see here that I have a task running. I can click here and see in the command palette which tasks are currently running. Let's look here, just a small refresh. And see that things are starting to deploy. Okay, you see that now I already have service instances. The application would be here. It already started to deploy. So it's going very, very fast now. Let's see, let's do a short stop. I'll go a bit. Sabine wasn't at the office since March 2020. Amazing. Yes. Also James. Wow. Bernard very close. April. Walter as well. We basically were sent to home offices around March as well. From time to time, I do stop by, but these are really rare occasions. Roger, is it one dev space per application project extension? No, you can have multiple application projects and extensions in a single dev space. The dev space is for a specific development scenario. You should be aware that currently the limit on the dev space is 6 gigabytes of data. And we already noticed that some of our users are hitting this limit. but basically you can have multiple application and projects in a single dev space. Can I download the dev space from trial account and upload to a global account? I haven't tried it. I don't think there should be an issue of doing it. Bus personalization is a dev space independent, but there is a way to move it. I think that DJ Adams released it was either a video or a blog showing how to do it. It's a bit cumbersome, and we're working on improving this experience. Okay, the application was deployed, so let's see exactly how it looks like. So within my space where I deployed the application, the space called Dev Application tab, I have here the products inventory application. Clicking on the link of the application will bring it up. Okay, so now I can see that it's actually running in my Cloud Foundry space, so in my actual runtime, and it looks good. So we did the build, we logged into the Cloud Foundry, we deployed the application, we tested it, and now we are moving to the integration with the SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery. First thing we need to do is to do Git setup, because the integration, as Irina mentioned, is done through Git. So actually doing a Git push is creating a trigger via a webhook on GitHub, which is connected to the SAP Cloud, to SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery, which triggers the job, and eventually deploying the updated application to the space, to the Cloud Foundry space. So let's start with GitHub. So I'm creating a new repository. With a cool, fascinating name. And then some setup that I need to do on the Business Application Studio part. I skipped some of the steps here because I made them in advance. And there are also a bit an issue of a private personal access token. So I'm going to connect my GitHub repository with my Fiori project. Okay, let's do it. Moving back to the Business Application Studio. Opening a terminal. You're probably familiar with this basic command. One additional interesting command, and this is in order not to type my personal access token or my credential every time that I do a Git command that requires them, is to set the credential helper. This is in seconds. And I can also, I do it in a way that after this timeout passes, I will be asked for addition, for my credentials. There are ways to make it persist. And everything is described in the exercise itself. Credential helper. So you can see it here, git config, credential helper. And there are ways to make it persist with SSH.NET RC, a credential helper store, and so on. So far, we use the Project Explorer view. Now we'll move to a new view, which is the Git pane. No repository so far. We're creating a new repository in it, then staging the project. So everything is staged. And of course, it's an initial commit and committing it. Now a bit final steps that require the command line interface, which is the git remote add origin and my Git repository. And we want to make everything to be up to standard. So we change the branch name from master to main. And all that is left is to push the changes. And here it where I need my credential. And this is the only time that I'll need to provide my credentials with my work with Git. From now on, for the next 14,400 seconds, I will not need to do it, or a bit less. So the Git setup is complete. Where is my, okay. Let's set up the continuous integration and delivery service. So all of this is for those who don't have. So basically, you should be able to see the service just like the Business Application Studio. It should be available in the subscription pane. We can see it here. I'm already subscribed to it, but just go through the full flow. So I click on the continuous, usually it's unsubscribed, I'll click the tile, I'll subscribe to it. After subscribing to it, I need to have permissions as an administrator to this service. So I'm going to the security trust configuration section. My default identity provider, where I can see my assignments. And for CI/CD, of course, what I need is to have the role collection of the CI/CD service administrator. And if I do not have it, I'm doing assign role collection, looking for the role that I need, and assigning the role to the relevant user. In the trial account, it's myself. So now that everything is ready and set up, I can move forward and define the pipeline. So I'm going to the service, launching it. And the first thing that I'll do is provide credential to access my CF account. So the service will be able to deploy to this service. I'm going to call it CF deploy. I'm going to use basic authentication. And now creating the job itself. So clicking the plus button, we'll call the job procurement. The repository is, of course, the one from Git. So I'm going to call it products inventory with the relevant URL. Since it's a public repository, I don't need to add credentials and other stuff, or it's not an enterprise Git behind a firewall with Cloud Connector and so on. So it's very simple access to a public Git. So I just can move ahead and add the repository to the job. The branch is, of course, as you saw, main. And here there are various pipelines that are pre-delivered from SAP for the cloud application programming model, for SAP Fiori development for the Neo environment, or for the Cloud Foundry environment. We are developing SAP Fiori for the Cloud Foundry environment. So all the defaults are now being adjusted. So we are going to do the build stage, the malware scan, deploy, of course. So I need to get all the endpoint, organized space, credential, and all this kind of stuff. And it is, most of it is available here in the overview of my sub account. So I have here the API endpoint. Org name is also available from here. Space, as you recall, it's space called dev. The credentials are the credentials that I provided when I started configuring the job. And of course, we're not going to use the transport management. The deploy is taking care of the deployment part. And I'm creating my job. So now I have a Git repository. I have the pipeline ready, and I need to create the link, the trigger between them. And the trigger is based on the webhook data. So I'm going back, and this is done in the settings part, webhooks, add webhook. And this is the payload URL that I took from the continuous integration delivery service. It's application JSON. And I'm also copying the secret. And I'm creating the webhook. So let's look at it a bit. So when a push event occurs to this specific repository, it will trigger the pipeline on SAP continuous integration and delivery service. Okay. So basically, I think that we completed all of this. Creating, configuring the webhook. So let's do an update to the project and push it. So the update that we're going to do is very simple. You probably see here that the text is not really nice. So we're going to update all the text. All the text are based of course, on best practice, which is using the I18N internationalization strings. So in the Business Application Studio, we go to the Project Explorer. The I18N files are available in the Web App folder I18N. And we, of course, prepared in advance snippet, which is available here. And I just updated my I18N. I see here that Git noticed it. And we can actually, you remember that we saw the compare between files that I chose. I can also do a compare between what is currently available in the Git pane compared with the last commit. So you can see it here, all the different things that were modified. And we have here a very nice map of where we can look at things that were added, removed, and so on. We need to, of course, to stage it. You can see here that it moved from changed to the stage area. And now we'll create a commit. And we will push the change to GitHub, which in turn will trigger the continuous integration and delivery. We just need to wait a couple of seconds. And here it is. The build started, the pipeline was triggered, and now we can monitor it. So I'm clicking the specific build, and on the right-hand side, I will be able to monitor and follow the pipeline through its different stages. And basically, it is auto-updating. You can see it here, and later in the tile themselves, you can see that it is auto-updating every 10 seconds or so. Now, if it is not updating, very easy. You just click the refresh button and you get the updated status of the pipeline. During the pipeline and even after the pipeline is completed running, you can see the full log, or you can see the log of a specific stage in the pipeline. We will see it in a moment. I just want to let it run a bit. Irina, now I think that we have now about 4 or 5 minutes where we can answer online.
Yeah.
So this is the build log so far. And I can show the full log, which includes, of course, the build log, but also the initialization and everything else.
Maybe I could answer this question. There was a question in the chat. Is it possible to have the continuous integration and delivery using the Git provided by SAP Cloud Platform or only GitHub? So it's not only GitHub. Maybe you saw it shortly in the dialog when Ras created this job. So we are also supporting Bitbucket server, but it is not possible to use the Git provided by SAP Cloud Platform. So it was only in the new based environment, this Git provided service, and we don't support it on our side. Wouter, is that an answer to your question, or do you want to ask something more? Okay, thank you. There was another question. Is there a way to deploy it to an on-premise system No, currently not. So as mentioned also in this demo, we have currently 3 templates for CAP or for Fiori applications. And then it is only possible to deploy to SAP Business Technology Platform.
Okay, I see a few questions from Attila. Here, just to refresh. Okay. Is there a plan to replace the SAP Web ID samples to bus in SAP UI5 development? Yes, we have such plans. It is done by a different team, so I don't have timeline for it. Plan to add a guide in Fiori toolkit within bus to replace Fiori elements text. So not sure about this specific functionality, but overall Fiori elements comes with support for what you may have seen here in the welcome screen, or guided development. So you can trigger a guided development for Fiori Elements application, which creates, guides you through your request and create a code snippets and even injects it into the right place in your code. I don't recall where such a demo exists, but it does. And I think that we also have an additional workshop session that will take place later this month about SAP Fiori Elements development. I think IIS 360, if I recall correctly. For feature requests, this is something very nice. What I'd recommend is to go to the SAP Influence site, where you can find the Business Application Studio page and post there your feature request. These features are being voted. So if additional people from the community, additional developers like your feature request, they will vote for it and it get precedence. And also it has a full feedback mechanism built in to provide you information of where the feature request is in the process. Documentation on how to create a new version of the MTAR. As far as I recall, there is. Basically, I think that all you need to do is to change in the MTA the number. Okay, I'll try it in just a second. We can see that the pipeline completed successfully. We have here a green notification for the full job instance. as well as success up here, and everything here looks also fantastic. We can see the application here, all these not very nice titles and text. Let's do a small refresh. And the text are changed. So the whole development, creating the staging, creating the commit, pushing to Git, triggering the continuous integration and delivery, and finally having it deployed in the runtime. Everything worked really, really well. Very, very smooth. Okay, let's proceed with the session. Basically, the rest of the session is to improve the application a bit, make it a bit more productive. Like we can see here that it needs to be beautified a bit, add a bit additional information, and we also would like to do some updates to this page to add the supplier, to add orders, and so on. So this is what we're going to do next. And during doing it, we'll also touch a bit about additional functionality that is available. Okay, so we've done all of this. We've done the push. We noticed all the different areas in the service completed successfully. We saw that everything was updated. And now we're going to do some additional code modifications. We want to update the work list view. So of course, everything is ready. And again, my suggestion for you, if you do the exercise on your own, take the time and type the code by hand. Fill the all the highlighting, fill all the autocomplete, auto-suggest, and so on. This will help you a lot. So searching for, we have here, of course, the search pane, but searching for files is we have a very nice way to do it. Again, from the command palette. But now what we're doing is we're deleting the small greater than, and we're looking for a file. And we're going to change the work list view XML. And what we said is that we want to add columns. Okay. So in the table, the way that the table is built, there are the columns. We're going to add 2 columns to the table. So this is the layout of the table. And then we also need to bring the data itself. So there are like 2 objects that we're adding. You can see them here. Let's wait a bit. Another way to look at what's going on is, of course, through the developer pane, network, and we can see that the application is running and fetching data and information. But of course, the application that is running in mock mode is much faster because it does not need to go to the back and forth to fetch data. You can see that this tab is still loading while the mock data completed successfully. Okay, now let's add some info to the supplier page. Okay, first of all, we want to bring the form to make it easier for us to work. So again, we're looking for the object view XML. Let's do perhaps a bit of typing. No, UI layout. You can see the autocomplete working very nicely here. And then we have the content that we want to add. As you can see here in this code, the VBox is already provided because we're going to have a form and also a table describing all the different orders that include the specific item. So we have here the title heading, the header content, and just below the header content, this is where we'd like to have the supplier info. So we can see that it is loading. If it did not, we can just do a small refresh. And meanwhile, I want to see, look at the YAML. You can see here that the version is 001. Let's change it to 002. Save. And let's make a build. Because every change that I'm making is re-triggering the refresh of the application. So we can see here that I have the supplier info added. And now we need to actually get the content. So in order to get the content, of course, we need to do it from the controller of the view. Okay, so the build completed. And you can see here that in the MTA archives, I have two versions, the .1 and .2 MTARs. So this is an answer for the question. Where was I? Okay. Okay, so the first thing that I do is to make the OData call that is going to the backend to provide me more information than the product themselves, but also to expand and provide the supplier and order details that will be used as part of the exercise. So I'm going now back to, so now actually I need to have the objects controller open. That's nice. And again, this lovely outline with the bind view. And this is actually where we do the call. correctly. So now we're doing the call with the parameters. So I'm saving the file. Auto refresh is triggered. And I should see the results of my code change. Come on. Perhaps, let's see. Looks okay. Oh, of course, for the mock data, I did not provide any supplier info. It is only available from the real backend. I only provided the product data. If you recall, I only uploaded the product JSON. So if I'm going to the real backend and I'm clicking chocolate, I have here the supplier info available. I think that now, okay, let's do just perhaps a bit more, and then we'll have some time for Q&A and closing. So breadcrumbs, again, something that is kind of standard into today's applications. So the breadcrumbs in the object view, they'll be probably just above the header content, right? Yep. So we have the breadcrumbs, so we can go back and forth easily. And let's immediately move to the next one and add a table to the orders view to show the list of orders. So we go to the object view. Recall we had in advance the VBox for the form and for the tables view. And I'll move right along. There is a format modification that we need to do because the way that it looks now, numbers that are provided in percent format are showing as a 0 dot something, and we want to beautify it to make it easy for our end users. So we will modify a bit the formatter to handle percent numbers that should be represented as percentiles. And it's available in the model folder, the formatter. So we have now the formatter set as well. And I think that basically that completes the application development. We'll let the application come up. And of course, We can see here at in the Git pane everything that we did. We can compare, for example, the formatter. You can see here that these are the additions that we had, that we performed for this file. And of course, if I will commit and push it to Git, it will re-trigger the job, the pipeline. It will create a new job and will be eventually deployed to my Cloud Foundry space where I'll be able to test it in the actual runtime. Okay, so we have now the application completely ready. We have the supplier info, we have the orders list, the percentages are displayed correctly. So the application really looks like production ready. So there is an additional exercise if you'd like to perform it that explains a bit about useful CF commands that you should probably be aware of. Such as help to understand which help commands are available, how to access a specific help command, log out, log in, see the different applications that are deployed in the space, how to undeploy, how to deploy from the command line. And that's basically it. One thing that was very nice here that I think that I skipped is if you want to have like additional real estate for the editors or for the terminal for that matter, you can of course close the different panes. This gives a lot of space, and if you double click a tab, it will fill all the screen area that is available for it. So this is one thing that was very nice. And another thing nice that I wanted to show here is that the layout of in Business Applications Studio is something that you can customize to your own needs. So for example, I can decide that I want to see, let's say, the object controller in parallel to the object view XML. So here I have the object view XML open, and I can take the object controller, drag it around, decide where exactly I want to see it. And now I can see them side by side, one on top of the other, and so on. So it is very flexible, everything that you can, that you see here. So I think that just like we planned, we have 15 minutes for a closing and Q&A. So let me try. Let's see. Okay, we've been here. So a bit of closing remarks, and then we'll use the rest of the time for additional Q&A. This was the workshop. So as I mentioned, there are related SAP Teched sessions that took place during Teched, and some of them were also rerun during this SAP Community Week. For example, we had the Dev 930 a week ago. Dev 164 was also a week ago. IS 360 development of Fiori apps with OData v4 planned to February 22nd. I think that I mentioned it earlier. And also a very nice session on cloud native development with SAP HANA that will take place in a week or so. You can see here popular website. Additional information on Business Application Studio, you can go to the Business Application Studio homepage. Very easy to remember URL, www.sap.com/appstudio. Introduction video, Fiori Tools Guide, Continuous Integration and Delivery product page. And we just recently released a new set of blogs, a blog series on SAP Business Application Studio. So there's a link here as well, but you can actually find it on the homepage, or if you're searching on SAP Community. One moment before this. So as I previously mentioned, Business Application Studio, Fiori Tools, CI/CD, and the rest of the tools are basically cloud products. So we frequently introduce innovation to them, and therefore, when you try to get your hands dirty and you try to follow the exercise which is available for you, regardless of the session itself, you need to be aware that the screen and dialogues might look a bit different, and with time it will probably be very much apart. What we see that in many sessions you would like to, there are questions I think that we saw during the session, so we are very happy that you did it during the session. And we'll have, I think that we can actually have about 10 minutes of Q&A online. I'm sure that we will not be able to attend to all sessions, to all questions. So feel free, and actually we encourage you to post questions directly to SAP Community following this session, to let community members and also Irina, myself, Ian, and the rest of our teams are also community members. Just don't forget to use the relevant tags, so we will be notified of the questions that you post into the community. And what I really like to do is to thank you for participating in this session. I hope that you experienced a bit with how Business Application Studio can help you in your daily work. It's the new development environment that we released a year ago, and this is the going forward environment where we put our efforts in, providing a desktop-like experience in the cloud. You're, of course, welcome to leverage SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery Service. It helps you preventing integration problems. It will speed up your development process. And of course, the SAP Fiori tools that accelerate the development of delightful and consistent experience, adhering to SAP Fiori design guidelines. So we get a very, very happy users eventually, and this is what we're looking for. I hope that you found the last couple of hours fruitful for your work. It is a challenging session. It is a challenging exercise, but I hope that you'll be able to do it on your own as well and have fun performing them and tackling the challenges. The session material is available for you even after the session ends. So take your time, experiment with it at your own pace. At the end of the session, at the end of the slides, you'll have additional contact details. So on top of SAP Community, where you can post questions and reach out, you'll also be able to access us directly. We have a generic mailbox, you'll see it for the Business Application Studio that is monitored by a team. So now I'll be very happy to try and see if there are additional questions in the chat. Thank you, Sabine and Attila, for your kind words. Johan, Roger as well. Wow, thank you very much. Mohammed, you raised the question, a specific difference in case if we use bus with ECC system in the backend. I'm not very clear about difference compared to what? In the developer guide, you can find information about the prerequisite for basically for ECC. It's mentioned there S4, but it's actually any ABAP system. So you can see here Fiori stuff, Fiori applications. And we are talking about, like it says here S4, but it's actually an ABAP system. And here in the deployment, you can see the requirement must include SAP UI5 754 SPOO or higher available from phase 5. And already answering the question, what if it's not available? Then we click on this note, which actually says that the rest of the front-end servers are basically out of maintenance. So you should have it. So you can see here, phase 2 out of maintenance, 3 out of maintenance, 4 out of maintenance, and phase 5, which is mentioned and supported, is available and it is maintained. So I hope that I answered the question. Okay, Jennifer, I think that you also wanted to have closing remarks.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up with the questions. I put my links in the chat. If you guys need more information, you can go to SAP Community to receive answers by community members. So go ahead and check out those links. And I think that's about it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone, for taking some time off your busy schedule and joining us for this session. And wherever you are, we wish you good morning, good afternoon, or good night.
Thanks from my side as well. Bye-bye.